Chapter 51, Legendary Ice Magician Anastasia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Go, crush them. Rogers showed excitement, waved his hand, and asked his men to attack. The gnolls who received the order swung their chain hammers and flails, roared loudly, and launched an attack. Knight squires retreat and protect themselves, the other 6 follow me and kill the one-armed gnoll. Velen made a prompt decision, issued an order, and then led the way. Several bronze mid-level gnolls were cut in half, and the hot blood dyed their armor red, marking the official start of the battle. The next moment, more crazy gnolls swarmed in, constantly attacking the advancing Varen and the other 6 silver knights. As more and more gnolls rushed up, the 7 were separated, and Varen gradually lost contact with the other 6. As a key focus, Rogers mobilized most of the bronze high-level gnolls to besiege Varen. Cut off one of this human's legs, and you'll be rewarded with 20 gold coins. One arm, 50 gold coins. The many gnolls around heard the leader's words, and the strong smell of blood made them gradually lose their minds. Welen kept swinging the knight's sword, and almost every attack could kill a gnoll, but the number of gnolls around him was increasing, and there was no reduction at all. This can't go on. Feeling the fighting spirit in his body being consumed, he had to make a decision, otherwise he would be exhausted to death here. At this moment, the legendary magician in the back woke up, looked around with cold eyes, and chanted a spell in his mouth, and a huge magic beam began to condense. In an instant, the surroundings were covered with ice and snow, and all the gnolls were frozen. Welen, panting, stopped his movements, shook the blood crystals solidified on his armor, and was surprised. The strange pronunciation, the frozen gnoll ice sculpture began to break and turned into tiny crystals. Even the arrogant one-armed werewolf was no exception, and turned into part of the snow crystal on the ground. In an instant, the danger was lifted, and he knew who did it without thinking. Then, Welen took off his helmet, came to the legendary wizard floating in the air, and bowed to show respect. "Sir, thank you for your help." The legendary wizard heard Welen's words, his eyes were full of doubts, and he muttered in his mouth, and then he knew what he said. "Young man, thank you for your help." Listening to the familiar common language, Welen sighed at the magic of magic in his heart, but he did not show it on the surface, and remained respectful. The legendary wizard looked around, opened his lips, and asked in a self-righteous manner, "Where is this place?" "Sir, this place is located in the Grey Mist Mountain in the Yellowstone area of the Grey Wasteland of the Zipnas subcontinent." Feeling the indifference in the other party's tone, Welen did not dare to neglect it and said what the other party wanted truthfully. "Grey Mist Mountain." With an affirmative tone, she already knew everything in her heart. "Escaped urgently, and indeed came to the world from the starry sky, but the foundation was also injured, and I had to stop to recuperate." Feeling the oppression of the laws around her, she was more than 100 times stronger than the mother world she was in. It was definitely a powerful and terrifying world. This forced her to establish contact with the natives as soon as possible to offset the rejection and oppression of the laws, otherwise her injuries would worsen and she would die. Welen looked at the other party in silence, standing quietly in place, waiting for the other party's instructions. "As a reward, I will protect you for 30 years, are you willing?" That it was exactly the same as the time limit told by fate. Looking at the other party's somewhat defeated face, he seemed to understand something. "It's my honor." Then, the legendary wizard mobilized a trace of magic power recovered in his body to form 2 lavender magic circles under her and Welen's feet. Looking at the magic circle under his feet, Welen was a little panicked, and the information that appeared in his mind the next moment dispelled his doubts. "This is the ceremony of protecting the contract. Under the witness of the God you believe in, you and I will reach a contract." "Yes, sir." The next moment, the ceremony began. Welen put on a pious expression on his face and said solemnly, "Great goddess of life, your faithful believer, conclude a contract, please witness it." After a long series of sacred oaths, a beam of light enveloped the two. At the same time, 12 knight attendants and 6 silver knights knelt down and bowed their heads to show respect for the gods. In Welen's eyes, the legendary wizard seemed to see something, and a respectful look appeared on his cold face. He began to solemnly swear, the legendary ice magician Anastasia swears here that she is willing to protect Wei Lin and his territory for 30 years and guarantee the other party's absolute safety in exchange. The words after that were completely incomprehensible in Wei Lin's ears, as if they were out of order. Yes. The majestic voice rang in his ears, and the soft beam of light dissipated. After the ceremony, the legendary ice magician Anastasia landed steadily on the ground, looking at the young man in front of him curiously, wanting to say something, but unable to. From now on, I will protect you and your territory until 30 years later. From now on, you can call me Anastasia. After looking at me with curious eyes, Anastasia said in a soft tone, no longer indifferent as before. Yes, ma'am. Wellin bowed his head and answered, with a general understanding in his heart. Raimondo, take your people to collect the complete money and supplies around. When Raimundo received the order and was about to leave, Varen hurriedly stopped him and added, choose those with high value. Yes, Lord. The horses they carried were limited, and it was impossible to bring back all the things carried by the more than 300 jackals. They could only select the ones with high value, and bury the rest on the spot, waiting to be retrieved later. As the temperature rises, the ice crystals on the ground begin to melt, and the blood flows down the mountain. More of it is left on this land as nourishment for the plants in Grey Mist Mountain. The legendary mage Anastasia looked at the busy group of people, and with a wave of his hand, an ice throne took shape. Sitting on the throne, looking at the tattered robe on her body and the empty middle finger, she had no choice but to do this now. She is not an ignorant girl. As a legendary mage who has lived for more than 600 years, she doesn't care about worldly opinions at all. Besides, who dares to disrespect her? Shia, who was bored, focused her eyes on the young man with whom she had made a contract, and her thirst for knowledge did not diminish at all. She wanted to know why the young man in front of her, who was less than 20 years old, received the attention of gods, and she didn't even know one of them. With her current strength, she doesn't have the guts to offend the majesty of the gods. Chapter 52, Unexpected Gains, Return to Territory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, the sky darkened. Since the tents were destroyed by the gnolls, Wei Lin could only order his subordinates to find more firewood, make a fire to keep warm, use the sky as a blanket and the ground as a bed, and rest for a night. After a pot of broth was cooked, Wei Lin filled a bowl and sent it to the legendary magician. Ms. Anastasia. At the edge of the camp, Wei Lin came to an ice house, pushed the door open, and put the broth on the ice table. Thank you. Xia opened her eyes, woke up from her practice, and thanked Wei Lin. Unconsciously, she had put the young man on the same level. Wei Lin bowed and saluted, then left the ice house, looking at the bright red moon in the night sky, in a good mood. The security problem has been solved, and the next step is to develop in a whale-like manner. With the protection of a legendary magician, even if it is a half-crippled legendary magician, it is enough for him to walk sideways on the border of the kingdom of Ilia. The larger the territory, the more resources, and the more people trained, the larger the territory can be expanded, a virtuous cycle. If the 7-color life flower can be found at the bottom of the Qixing Lake, then there must be unknown treasures in other places that can quickly improve strength. With the help of fate, he will definitely become the 6th Earl of the family in 30 years. At this time, Raimondo walked towards Wei Lin excitedly with a stack of papers. Master, we made a fortune this time. No hurry, eat first, and then talk slowly. Wei Lin was in a good mood and ordered Raimondo. At night, Wei Lin and Raimondo sat on the ground by the campfire and began to discuss how to deal with this batch of materials. There are about 30,000 gold coins, and a lot of silver coins. I can't count them all. I estimate that there are about 150,000. 256 fine knight swords, 136 sets of fine armor. 893 low-level magic crystals, 17 intermediate magic crystals, 1 high-level magic crystal, 376 magic pearls. 130 special papers for making magic scrolls, 16 bottles of magic potions, 12 pounds of purple gold sand, and 32 elementary magic books of various types, with a total value of more than 100,000 gold coins. As Wei Lin listened to Raimondo's report, the smile on his face never stopped. this time it was really a windfall. He had given up leading the troops south to rob the supplies looted by the gnolls, but he didn't expect that the gnoll leader would take the essence and leave the Cartero province from the north in a unique way. Am I really? The next moment, Weylin shook his head and abandoned this unrealistic idea. Instead of fantasizing about this, it is better to honestly plan the next development and grow step by step. Take away 50 sets of knight swords and armor each, bury the rest on the spot and mark them. Send someone to retrieve them after you return. As for the rest, take them all away and don't leave them here. My lord, I'll give the order right away. The excited Raimondo immediately stood up and went to tell the knight's attendants to dig a pit to bury the knight's swords and armor. Weylin leaned against the trunk of a big tree, looking at the ice house not far away, feeling more relaxed than ever before. 2 days later, Weylin returned with a full load of seized supplies. Outside the village, 2 rock monitors in training looked at their master returning, left the breeder behind, and ran over happily. Xia followed Weylin, curiously, looking at the surrounding environment and buildings. The first impression was cleanliness, which directly changed her stereotype of the dirty environment of the town. Velen, as a lord, you must be qualified. Velen heard this and said with a smile, Ms. Anastasia is great. During the long journey, there are few towns I have visited that have such a clean and comfortable environment. Anastasia looked at Velen and said calmly. At this time, seeing the 2 rock monitors running over, Velen squatted down and touched their chins curiously. Hey, interesting, can you let me study these 2 pets for 2 days? Feeling great oppression, the 2 rock monitors trembled with fear and buried their heads in the soil. Looking at the 2 pets who were about to urinate, Velen comforted them and said, Madam, in this state, it is obviously impossible for them to cooperate with your research. I think forget it. Yeah. Anastasia nodded and stopped paying attention. Seeing that the other party was no longer persistent, Velen breathed a sigh of relief. He was still reasonable and could avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble in the future. Ms. Anastasia, do I provide you with a place to stay, or do you choose a place and I'll have someone build it for you? Weylin said to Xia after letting Xiao Bai and Xiao Huang leave. No, you just need to give me a place, and I'll take care of the rest. Xia returned to her aloof look and added, it's best to stay away from the center of your territory. Listening to Xia's words, Weylin was a little confused, but still followed her choice. Madam, I want to ask how big the range needs to be. Weylin thought for a while and asked. 30 square kilometers. Xia gave an approximate value based on the minimum range of radiation from her legendary domain. Then, Weylin asked Baird to get the map. As Xia arrived at the Praying Star Lake, he clearly felt that the temperature had dropped by 3 or 4 degrees compared to the previous temperature, which should be related to the area required by the other party. Xia stood aside, watching the young noble draw 2 places on the parchment. Since she didn't know the characters of this world, she could only wait for Weylin to explain it to her. Madam, please look. Weylin put away the pencil and explained to Xia, I think these 2 places are suitable. One is 11 kilometers north of the Praying Star Lake, and the other is 30 kilometers west. Then this one. After examining it, Xia stretched out her white finger and pointed to the place 30 kilometers west of the Praying Star Lake. Weylin nodded slightly. With the protection of this big man, the entrance to the dark area should be easy to develop. However, the development of the dark area will be considered after 3 to 5 years. Now his territory does not have extra power to do such dangerous things. The most urgent thing is to take advantage of this great opportunity to expand the territory. Madam, these 30 square kilometers of land can be used as your private territory, and you can dispose of it as you like. Xia nodded after hearing this, and was very satisfied. Then, Weylin personally took Xia to the guest room of the castle, let her rest for a while, and took her to the destination tomorrow. After everything was done, the sun had already set. After Weylin had dinner, he called Baird to the study to learn about the movements of the Southern Wolf Army. After he had eaten up the essence, he set his sights on the population. Chapter 53, Define the area and hold a meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Baird came to the hall, bowed and saluted, and reported, My lord, the large group of jackals was surrounded by the kingdom's army at the border and has been wiped out. But according to the intelligence my subordinates have found, this group of noble coalition forces from the province of Sirop seems to be very disappointed. Of course they will be disappointed. Wei Lin said with a smile after hearing this. Baird was a little confused, and the Lord seemed to have known everything for a long time. He was worthy of being a man favored by the goddess. Baird, notify others to hold a territory meeting in 3 days. It's time for us to expand to the west. Wei Lin stood up and told Baird, in addition, go and select 20 young women. I will be useful. Yes, my lord. After hearing this, Wei Lin nodded, and after Baird left, he returned to his room to rest. The next morning, Wei Lin asked Baird to prepare some necessary supplies, and asked Raimondo to take out half of the things harvested from the jackals, load them on the carriage, and send them together to the west 30 kilometers. My lord, I don't understand. Raimondo came to Wei Lin and confided his thoughts, wanting to find an answer. Those things are valuable, but they were unexpected. They were originally seized by Ms. Anastasia. We are lucky to get half of them. Wei Lin felt the cold breath behind him and explained to Raimondo, standing not far from the convoy. Xia listened to the words of the noble boy, and a strange look flashed in his eyes, but he did not speak. Madam, good morning. Wei Lin turned around appropriately, found Xia, and bowed. Hello, Wei Lin, since you are ready, let's go. Yes. Under Wei Lin's order, a squadron of soldiers escorted 12 carriages loaded with various supplies, as well as 20 carefully selected beautiful female serfs, to the Silver Ice area 30 kilometers away. The name Wei Lin specially set up for these 30 square kilometers. An hour later, Wei Lin arrived at a hill 2 kilometers to the left of the entrance to the Underdark. There was a river of moderate size around it, which could be used as a water source for the Silver Ice area. Not bad. Xia commented, and then mobilized the magic power in his body to drive the magic power around him to move closer to here. Wei Lin stood aside, watching the water gathered from all around. Under the operation of the legendary magician, from nothing to something, in just half an hour, a castle made of ice was formed. The surroundings were covered with ice and snow, and all the plants turned into tiny ice crystals under the erosion of the ice breath. Others looked at the scene that seemed like a miracle and stood there blankly. Velen, this is my future residence. You can come to me for help at any time. I will fulfill the contract. Yes, ma'am. Wei Lin responded respectfully, and then pointed to the 20 female serfs who were a little pretty, and then said, Ma'am, this is the servant I gave you. I hope you will accept it. Xia turned around, stretched out his right hand, and a magic circle enveloped the 20 female serfs, and declared majestically, Are you willing to be my ice servants? Yes. The 20 female serfs answered in unison. As soon as the voice fell, the magic circle started, covering the 20 people. After a few minutes, the magic light dissipated, and the 20 female serfs wearing coarse cloth disappeared. Instead, there were 20 people with azure skin, the main part of which was covered with ice, which served as clothes. There were 2 pairs of translucent wings behind them, and tentacles on their heads that had not yet grown. Even their appearance changed a lot. As for strength, according to Wei Lin's perception, the former ordinary human has now reached the mid-level bronze level and is still growing. 20 unknown creatures opened their eyes, knelt on the ground, bowed to Xia, and said respectfully, Meet the master. Xia saw Wei Lin's doubts and explained with a smile, They are no longer human, you can call them ice elves. Wei Lin closed his mouth and said in shock, Sir, your ability, it. Don't worry, I know what you are afraid of. Xia waved Wei Lin's words and interrupted Wei Lin, and then explained, There are many restrictions to transforming into an ice servant. I didn't expect this transformation to be so thorough, and there was no distortion. Maybe it's thanks to you. Wei Lin looked at Xia's smile and was a little confused. This is my contractor. From now on, as long as he comes, you can't stop him. Yes, master. 20 ice elves answered. Finally, Xia took out a token from his chest and gave it to Wei Lin. This is a token. When necessary, it can block the following 3 attacks from the legend for you, and at the same time deter some people with ulterior motives. This is the reward for these things. Thank you, ma'am. Feeling the residual warmth on the token, Wei Lin did not pretend and thanked him directly. Afterwards, Wei Lin said goodbye to Xia and returned to the Lake of Praying Stars with Baird and his party. On the way back, Raimondo looked at Wei Lin with admiration and said excitedly, Master, you are really far-sighted. You can get a treasure by using these things. Ha ha ha, it's not a loss this time. Baird on the side was confused and looked at his master and Raimondo in confusion. He didn't understand the whole story. He couldn't figure out why this happened. 2 days later, in the castle hall, 14 low-level silver knights took their seats in turn according to their respective identities and status. Wine watched everyone arrive and called a meeting directly. So far, we have 4,000 people, 500 troops, 83 knight attendants, and 15 silver knights. With sufficient food, ample weapons, a stable base, and the protection of strong people, it is the right time to expand the territory. Within a year, we must not only develop and utilize all the 150 square kilometers of land in Qixing Lake, but also continue to expand the territory. And establish a buffer zone on the periphery to leave enough space. After hearing this, the other 14 silver knights understood the purpose of their lord. Last time the territory was first built, they could discard those unnecessary things and preserve the living force, but as the territory expands, they can't repeat this action every time, so they must keep the enemy outside the territory to reduce losses. My lord, I don't know how much land we need to open up this time and how big a buffer zone we need to build. Baird looked at Wei Lin and said. Wei Lin looked around and said directly, with the Praying Star Lake as the center, we will open up at least 200 square kilometers of land to the west and establish a 20-kilometer-long buffer zone. At this point, Wei Lin stopped, took out 2 pieces of parchment, handed them to Baird and Orlando respectively, and asked them to pass them down in turn. Seeing that the Lord did not speak, the others began to discuss in a low voice. 10 minutes later, after everyone had read the contents of the parchment, Wei Lin continued, there will be progress only if there is competition. I decided to divide the 2 departments of development and construction and give them equal resources. After a year, the team that has made greater achievements in the Praying Star Lake and the newly developed area will be awarded 6 low-level magic crystals, a mithril dagger, 3 sets of excellent knight armor, 3 excellent knight swords and a 7-color life flower. Chapter 53, Dividing Teams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You have seen the evaluation criteria, so I will not elaborate on them. Everyone looked at each other, and then looked at their lords, waiting for the next order. Wellin did not let them worry, and directly announced the list. The department left in the Lake of Praying Stars for construction will be led by Baird, and the members will be Cassius, Imogen and Orion, and 3 squadrons of soldiers will be retained. The rest of the army will be assigned to the development department, led by Orlando. Except for Raimondo, the rest of the Silver Knights will be assigned to this department. 2/3 of the weapons and equipment in the territory and 1/3 of the food supplies, and 1,000 people in the territory will be selected and assigned to the development department. By this time next year, we will conduct an evaluation and decide the winner. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. Please rest assured, my lord, we will do our best to complete our respective tasks. The 14 people stood up and said loudly to Wei Lin with a firm tone. No one was willing to give up such a generous reward. Okay, except for Raimondo, everyone else goes down to prepare. Wei Lin waved his hand, disbanded the meeting, and asked everyone to go out. After a while, Wei Lin and Raimondo were the only ones left in the empty hall. Raimondo, how is the caravan being organized? My lord, the caravan has been organized, with 12 carriages, 18 pack horses, 3 war horses, 12 drivers, 15 men, 15 caravan guards, 2 cooks and a doctor who knows a little about medicine, plus me, a total of 46 people. Yes. Wei Lin nodded and said, I'll give you 2 days to pick some goods, and then take you to open up trade routes. Yes, my lord. Raimondo bowed and saluted, then left the hall. On the other side, after Orlando came out of the hall, he took his brother back to the village at the foot of the mountain to prepare for today's training with his contractors. Brother, this is a good opportunity to prove ourselves and let the Lord see our role. Hebrew waved his fist excitedly as he walked. It's an opportunity, but it's also a responsibility. Orlando turned to look at his brother, his face calm and not very excited. There are only 4 people on the side of General Baird. Except for the Lord and Raimondo, the rest of the high-powered ones are almost all under my command. Looking at his elder brother's expression, Hebrew restrained his emotions and asked, "Are there any problems?" "No problem." Orlando shook his head and said, "This is an opportunity for the Lord to give us experience. We must grasp it well to lead the team to open up the territory alone, otherwise the 2 of us will stay with the Lord as guards in the future." "Is there anything wrong with being a guard?" Hebrew looked at his elder brother with a puzzled look. Unknowingly, the 2 brothers Orlando came to the station where their contractors were. "Train well, and don't let me down when the time comes." "Got it, big brother, I will work hard." Orlando nodded and walked to the left area of the camp, on the open ground. Seeing the 30 contractors training hard, Orlando nodded with satisfaction, put his hands behind his back, and began to patrol. 30 teenagers aged 13 or 14 watched their contractors coming and trained harder. As slaves and serfs, they longed to be useful people, not useless garbage. After patrolling around, Orlando took the wooden sword for training from the weapon rack next to him and asked his 30 contractors to gather. Soon, the 30 sweaty teenagers stood in front of Orlando, waiting for the next order. "Today, the Lord has given me an important task. The above is what we have to do. This is the Lord's test of us, and it is also an opportunity for us to prove our worth. You exist because of me, and I exist because of the Lord. Goddess of life, for the Lord, we are willing to give everything." The 30 young men looked pious and took the oath once a day as usual. Then, Orlando began to communicate with the light ball in his body, connecting the fighting spirit information of the 30 people. In the square, a light red light ball enveloped the 31 people. From a distance, the light red light ball had a vague outline, but it was not obvious. Standing at the highest point of the castle, Wei Lin looked at the scene below the mountain and smiled with relief at Orlando, who was training hard. "The effect of watching from a distance is good, but I don't know how the combat effectiveness is. This time, I hope to watch your growth." Wei Lin said to himself, touching his chin. Unconsciously, he raised Orlando and Hebrew as his own children. In the next 2 days, Wei Lin let Baird accept everything about the Lake of Praying Stars, except for the materials allocated to the development department. All other resources of the Qixing Lake were handed over to Baird for management. At the same time, Wei Lin also set about building a private treasury to distinguish it from the finances in the territory. In the basement of the castle, Wei Lin looked at the dim candlelight around him and admired his personal treasures. 300 kilograms of mithril and 50 kilograms of mountain copper, accounting for almost 10% of the inventory of the entire territory. In addition, the treasure chest next to it also contains 3 sets of excellent night equipment, 10 intermediate magic crystals, 1 advanced magic crystal, and 50 magic pearls. On the wooden shelf are 30 special papers for making magic scrolls, 6 bottles of magic potions, 3 pounds of purple gold sand, 32 elementary magic books of various types, and 3 night breathing methods. On the left side of the basement, there are 3 wooden boxes, each of which contains 10,000 gold coins, which is the least valuable thing here. These are his own private collections from now on. Although everything in the territory is mine, I need to think twice before using it, but the private vault is different. Looking at the many treasures, Wei Lin smiled and said to himself, "Perhaps, for the supplies of the territory, 2 storage systems can also be established, one for normal use and one for reserve, just in case." For the idea that suddenly popped up in his mind, Wei Lin immediately decided to take action. After leaving the basement, Wei Lin immediately asked the castle guards to call Baird over. "My lord, you are looking for me." After receiving the order, Baird immediately put down his work and rushed over. "Baird, I have an idea and want to hear your opinion." "My lord, please make it clear." Wellin leaned on the stone seat and said slowly, "For the storage system of the territory, we can follow the 7-3 principle. The 7th floor is used as normal supplies and is open. The 3rd floor is used as backup supplies to prevent accidents. What do you think?" Chapter 54, Opening Up the Trade Route, First Stop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Feasible. Baird thought for a while and answered immediately. In fact, he prefers the 82 ratio for storage, but since his superior has made it clear, as a subordinate, it is not easy to refute. Besides, storing an extra layer of supplies also provides an extra layer of protection, so there is no loss. That's it, I'll leave it to you to plan the general warehouse in the castle. In addition, you have to be responsible for the construction of the Lake of Prayer for Stars. I'm busy with official duties, so I won't keep you here. Yes, Lord. As quickly as he came, he left as quickly as he came. In less than 10 minutes, Baird left the hall. At this moment, a guard entered the hall, knelt down on one knee, and reported respectfully, "My lord, Sir Knight Raimundo asks to see you." "Let him in." Varen, who was about to leave, immediately sat down again and gave instructions to the soldiers. Not long after, a young man wearing brown linen clothes entered the hall and leaned down to salute. Wei Lin was stunned for a moment. "Raimundo, why are you dressed like this?" Raimundo looked at his own attire and immediately replied, "My lord, your wealth should not be exposed. As a businessman, the first thing to do is to keep a low profile, so as to avoid becoming a fat sheep of other forces." "You're right." Wei Lin covered his forehead and replied, "As a noble, his thinking has not changed yet, so he feels strange." Raimundo then began to report on his work. "My lord, this time we are going on a trade trip. 10 carriages will pull the goods, and 2 carriages will carry the living supplies needed by the caravan. Therefore, the cargo that can be carried is 12 tons. I choose 2 tons of finely processed mineral salt, and 2 tons of rough processed mineral salt. 6 tons, and the remaining cargo consisted of 320 animal skins, 120 folding chairs, and 6,000 pounds of hegemony. Go down and get ready and leave early tomorrow morning." "Yes." After Raimundo left, Varen looked at his clothes and immediately asked his servant to fetch a piece of linen clothing. On the muddy road in Cadro province, among Raimundo's caravan, Varen sat bored on the roof of a carriage, looking at the desolate scenes along the way. There are still more than 20 kilometers away from the first location, Grosvenor Barony. Looking at the markings on the roadside, Varen took out the map of Cadro province from his arms and looked at the 6 places outlined on it, which were the 6 relatively prosperous aristocratic territories that the trade route passed through. Try to complete it within 2 months. After putting away the map, Wei Lin lay on the roof of the car, looked at the gloomy sky, and muttered to himself, "The development of trade routes this time is not just about simply following a planned trade route, but also includes visiting local nobles, getting to know each other, communicating, and establishing personal relationships." More than an hour later, a small city appeared in front of everyone. At the entrance of the city gate, hundreds of civilians and businessmen were queuing up. Waiting to enter the city, the Grosvenor Barony is led by the Grosvenor family. It is a small family that was founded less than 100 years ago and has lasted for 3 generations. The only territory the family owns is this 3,000 square kilometers of land. Thanks to its strategic location and location on a major transportation thoroughfare, it is a relatively prosperous trading town in the surrounding area. 7 or 8 noble families and many pioneering lords from the surrounding area will come here to conduct transactions. After inspection, the caravan successfully entered the small town. As soon as he entered the city, the stench that assaulted his nostrils made Wei Lin cover his mouth and nose. Garbage, urine and feces are dumped haphazardly on the streets. "Sir, do you need shoes?" A small vendor ran to the caravan holding several pairs of high heels and sold them carefully. When Raimundo heard the other party's words, he subconsciously looked at Wellen, who was sitting on the roof of the car. "You are the caravan leader and you make your own decisions." "Yes." Raimundo turned to look at the vendor and asked, "How much does a pair cost?" Seeing that there was business, the vendor said respectfully, "Sir, these high heels can prevent you from stepping on the filth in the city. A pair only costs 5 copper coins." After thinking about it, Raimundo took out a silver coin from his pocket and gave it to the vendor. "I want all the shoes in your hands, and with the remaining money, I can hire you as a tour guide for a few days. Are you willing?" "Yes, sir, yes, little one." The vendor took the silver coins, put them in the inner pocket of his clothes, handed all 10 pairs of high heels to the caravan guard next to him, and quickly assumed the role of tour guide. "Sir, my name is Tom. Please give me your orders. Take us to the area where the carriages are parked first." Raimondo thought for a while and decided to find a place for the caravan to stay, and then went to hand over greeting cards to the nobles here. "As for the sale of goods, if you establish a connection with the nobles here, you won't be afraid of not being able to sell them. Please come with me, my lord." Later, the caravan followed Tom, a local merchant, to the place where the caravan was specifically stationed. After all the equipment was ready, Raimundo recruited a caravan guard. "Take this letter and the family crest and follow Tom to deliver a greeting to Baron Grosvenor here." "Yes, sir." The caravan guard took the letter and Jiahue and followed the small merchant to the small castle in the city. In the small castle in the center of the small town, Duke, the current patriarch of the Grosvenor family and the second son of Baron Grosvenor, was shirtless, waving the knight's sword in his hand, practicing his skills. "The bronze knight is an intermediate level. I don't know when I can break through to the high level. My own talent is limited and I can only make up for it through hard work." When he stopped training and prepared to take a break, the castle steward came in and reported, "Master, a noble sent someone to hand in a visiting card. It is one of the families that the master asked us to focus on." Duke stopped and turned around to ask, "Yes, that family. It is the X family. It should be the pioneer knight on the nearby border." The steward answered truthfully. "Take the visiting card and go to the main castle outside the city to inform my father." "Yes, master." After the steward left, Duke wiped the sweat off his body while ordering the servants to start cleaning up and arranging the venue, and also asked someone to sniff out information. Soon, a knight attendant rode a fast horse and headed towards the castle 20 kilometers north of the town. As night approached, a middle-aged man with a majestic aura and several guards came to the town of Grosvenor overnight. "Father." At the entrance of the castle, Duke, wearing a silk robe, bowed and saluted. "Duke, how is the situation?" Faced with his father's inquiry, Duke recounted the information he had investigated in just 3 hours during the day. "Father, the other party is stationed in Xiqing district and will visit at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. In addition, the goods of their caravan include." After listening, the middle-aged man nodded with satisfaction. "You did a good job. Now all those spies have been withdrawn." "Yes, father." Window _tabula equals window _tabula push mode thumbs feed 01 container tabula below article thumbnail 300x250 placement below article thumbnail 300 by 250 target _type mix. Chapter 55 Opening up the trade route. First stop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Late at night, after Duke finished handling his affairs, he came to the study door and knocked gently on the door. "Come in." Duke pushed the door open, looked at his father's back, lowered his head slightly, and said respectfully, "Father, it's taken care of." The middle-aged man put down the book in his hand, turned his head, looked at his second son, was silent for a while, and said, "You did a good job in the monster attack in the wasteland. Father, this is what I should do." Duke looked calm as he accepted his father's award, looking at his second son, who was ordinary in talent but hard-working. The middle-aged man had a complicated expression on his face. Their family is just a small baron family. Apart from paying taxes to the kingdom and paying fees to the superior nobles, the remaining resources are very limited. It is already very difficult to train heirs. For other family members, they can only be trained on the best. He also nothing can be done. Your talent is mediocre, and I can see your hard work over the years. After a long time, the middle-aged man spoke again. In the family, you have no future. I want to hear your choice. Duke lowered his head and said nothing. The light of the candle swayed in the evening breeze. This change of light and shadow adds an atmosphere of silence to the surrounding environment. Father, I follow your arrangements. After thinking for a long time, Duke decided to follow his father's arrangements. Tomorrow, I will introduce you to the pioneer of the Acres family. Whether you can succeed or not depends on you. Yes, father. Duke bowed and then left the room. Walking in the dark corridor, Duke looked melancholy. He also learned a lot about the monster attack in the wilderness more than a month ago. The pioneer from the Acres family established a pioneering territory in less than a year, and while preserving the territory, he showed strong fighting power, which made those jackals retreat and turn around. Attack inland areas. As for the fighting power of the jackals, he still had fresh memories of the battle seen more than a month ago. If it weren't for the city wall, the small town's defenders wouldn't be able to stop more than 300 jackals. I hope he'll like me. He doesn't think he has any shining points. Apart from his hard work, he is useless. 6 hours later, the sun rose. Wei Lin got up from the bed, put on his clothes, and walked out of the room. Sir, is this what you are wearing? Raimundo, who was already waiting at the door of the room, looked at Wei Lin's outfit and asked doubtfully. Wei Lin yawned and said, "It's quite troublesome to change clothes, that's all." After breakfast, Varen took Raimundo and 2 caravan guards, and the 4 of them went to the center of the small town to visit the lord here. After passing through the dirty streets, we came to the relatively clean castle square. A plainly dressed butler saw the arrival of Wei Lin and others, immediately stepped forward to greet them, and said respectfully, "May I ask if you are Lord Wei Lin?" "Well, I am." The housekeeper looked at the calm young man, not arrogant, and felt relieved. "My lord, please come with me. The Baron has been waiting for a long time." Afterwards, Wei Lin followed the butler into the castle, walked through the relatively spacious stone road, and came to a simple hall. The middle-aged man saw the young man in linen clothes walking in, and immediately stood up to greet him, followed closely by Duke, who was standing behind him. "Young eagle of the Eccles family, welcome to your arrival. I am the nobleman here, the Baron of Grosvenor, Weskier Grosvenor." Wei Lin looked at this friendly middle-aged uncle, put his right hand on his chest, bowed slightly, and said, "Your Excellency, Baron, I'm sorry to bother you, but I hope you don't mind." "Ha ha ha, it's my honor for you to come." The 2 parties exchanged a few polite words, and Weskier warmly invited Wellen to sit down and asked the servants to bring expensive pastries and fine wines. Raimundo came behind Wei Lin and stood quietly. As for the other 2 caravan guards, they were waiting outside. Duke, who was standing behind his father, raised his head slightly and looked at the powerful young man behind the young man. He couldn't help but feel a little shocked that he couldn't see the other man's strength. "Well, Varen, it's okay for me to call you this," Weskier said to Varen with a smile on his face. "Baron Weskier, you are free to do as you like," Varen said gently, sitting on the exquisite chair. "This is the upbringing of a great nobleman." Weskier looked at the powerful but humble young man, and recalled the appearance of the nobles from the family whom his grandfather was looking for coming to collect donations, and he couldn't help but shook his head. Immediately afterwards, the 2 sides chatted about the situation in the Cartero province, allowing Wei Lin, who had stayed in the territory for more than a month, to learn a lot of useful information. The most important thing is that the kingdom actually has a Silver Knights stationed in the small place of Cartero province. According to the kingdom's military system, a Silver Knights order includes 3 gold knights, 300 silver knights, 3,000 bronze knights and an uncertain number of knight attendants, roughly between 5,000 and 10,000. Baron Weskier, one of the reasons for coming here this time is to visit the Grosvenor family, and the other is about business. After going around and around, Varen revealed the purpose of his trip. Weskier was not surprised when he heard Varen's words. He had expected it. "I wonder what product it is." Although the information had been ascertained, Weskier did not directly tell it before such an occasion, but asked politely. "Table salt is processed from mineral salt." Raimundo, who was standing behind Wei Lin, took 2 small cloth bags from his waist and placed them on the long wooden table. Weskier saw the other party making a gesture of invitation, so he stopped pretending, took the 2 cloth bags, and carefully poured them on the wooden table. The refined mineral salt looked white and crystal, with uniform particles. Weskier took some salt and rubbed it on his fingertips. It was dry and not damp, delicate and smooth. He put it in his mouth and tasted it carefully. His eyes lit up and he said in surprise, "It's of high quality. I wonder how much you offer." How much do you think it's worth, Baron? After hearing this, Weskier did not answer immediately, but looked at another pile of roughly processed salt grains and evaluated them in his mind. After a while, Weskier pointed to the refined experiment and said, "For this kind of salt, I am willing to offer 25 copper coins per pound. As for the other kind, it is a little bitter and the texture is not good, but it is better than the mineral salt on the market. I am willing to offer 10 copper coins per pound to buy it." After hearing this, Weylin found that the price was not much different from what he had estimated in his mind, and he was about to discuss further, but was interrupted by Weskier's words. "Weskier, business matters can be discussed later, I have a favor to ask. Window, _tabula equals window, _tabula, push, mode, thumbs, feed, 01, container, tabula, below, article, thumbnail, 300x250, placement, below article thumbnail, 300 by 250, target _type, mix." Chapter 56, Opening Up Trade Routes, Duke. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Please tell me. The words that were about to reach his lips were put back again. Varen looked at Weskier blankly and said, Weskier said apologetically, "I want you to introduce my second son Duke." "Oh." Varen looked at the young man behind Weskier who puffed out his chest and looked up and down. The strength of the intermediate bronze level is quite satisfactory. When Duke heard Weylin's words, he felt a little disappointed, but he didn't show it and still stood motionless behind his father. If that's the case, then. Weskier didn't have much hope for this, and was ready to change the topic to business. The next moment, Weylin waved his hand to interrupt the other party's speech. "However, I can give your second son a chance. As long as he can pass my test, I can accept him and train him." "I wonder what the test is." Seeing that things were turning around, Weskier looked hopeful and asked impatiently. "Fight a fight with my caravan guard and I will give you the answer." Seeing this, Weskier hurriedly agreed and enthusiastically took Weylin to the training ground in the center of the castle. With his host leading the way, Weylin took Raimondo to a training ground covering an area of more than 60 square meters. Various weapons were placed on the weapons racks nearby. Remember to suppress the strength to the same level as the opponent. Varen turned his head and looked at Raimundo and gave him instructions. "Yes, Lord." Raimundo nodded in response, then took out a suitable wooden sword from the weapon rack, then took off his linen jacket, revealing the white cloth shirt worn on the inside. After receiving Weskier's approval, Duke also took off his coat, took the wooden sword handed over by the servant, and came to the center of the training ground. "Use all your strength and don't lose in one move. This will embarrass your father." Raimondo suppressed his strength to the middle level of bronze, looked Duke up and down, and kindly reminded him. "Thank you." After Duke thanked him, his eyes became sharp, he held the wooden sword tightly with both hands, and began to slowly mobilize the fighting spirit in his body. Raimondo, on the other hand, looked at Duke very casually and did not make any unnecessary moves, waiting for the opponent to attack first. The next moment, Duke took the lead and attacked Raimondo, but was easily blocked, standing outside the training ground. Weskier looked at the two fighting men with a serious look. He knew very well about the strength of his second son. He was stronger than some high-level bronze knights in his territory, but he was easily controlled by a caravan guard who was suppressed by the other party in the same realm. Varen noticed the change in Weskier's expression and said with a smile, "Lord Baron, your second son is very strong. Compared with the average bronze knight, he is already considered to be first class." After hearing this, Weskier shook his head and said, "Weylin, he can't even defeat one of your caravan guards." "It's really. No, it can't be calculated that way." Varen said to Weskier, "As the leader of the caravan, I carefully selected Raimondo. In addition, he has received complete knight training from his family, so he is naturally better than the lesser nobles. Cultivated, I'm sorry to judge you like this." "It's okay, please continue." Weskier didn't feel any contempt. The level was there, and it didn't mean that such a name didn't exist if others didn't say it. The heirs trained by minor nobles may not be as good as our family's knight training. Duke has achieved this level, which is considered good, but he lacks some necessary training. When Weskier heard Wayleen's words, he felt a lot more at ease. At least the other party would not refuse to accept his second son. He then complimented, as a family based on the knight profession, the Akers family is very aware of how powerful you are. Thank you for your recognition of Duke. After hearing this, Waylin nodded and said nothing, quietly watching the battle between the two. As time passed, Duke's energy was running low. He panted and looked at his opponent, feeling a little shaken in his heart. His efforts over the years seemed to be worthless. From the short battle, he clearly felt that the opponent was letting go. Based on his judgment, if the opponent goes all out from the beginning, he will definitely lose within 3 moves. Zhengdut, the sword in Duke's hand, was knocked away, and he knelt on the ground helplessly, saying with difficulty, "Sir, thank you for your mercy. Your foundation is very poor, but your perseverance is good, you just lack some guidance." Seeing that the fighting had stopped, Weskier and Varen stepped forward. When Duke saw his father coming over, he forced himself to stand up and said with shame, "Father, I lost." "It's okay, you've tried your best." He thought his father would show an embarrassed expression when he lost, but unexpectedly it turned out to be a face full of love. He hadn't seen his father show such an expression in many years. "Duke, are you willing to follow me?" Varen came to Duke and said gently. After hearing this, Duke was stunned. Weskier looked at his dull son and immediately kicked him in the knee, causing him to kneel on the ground. After reacting, Duke bowed to the ground and said loudly, "Greetings to the Lord." Waylin saw this and helped him up. "Say goodbye to your father and come to my station to find me tomorrow morning. You should know the place." "Yes, Lord." Duke quickly changed his tune and leaned forward to salute. Subsequently, Raimondo, as the leader of the caravan, further discussed the mineral salt with Weskier's steward and determined the acquisition. After lunch, Waylin said goodbye to Weskier, left the castle with Raimondo and 2 caravan guards, and prepared to go to the commercial district of this small town to see if there was anything he was interested in. "My lord, the purchase price given by the other party is much higher than before." After leaving the castle, Raimondo followed behind Waylin and told the story. "Well, tell me about it." Waylin asked with some surprise. Raimondo took out a business contract from his pocket and handed it to Waylin for inspection. At the same time, he explained, "The price you negotiated with Baron Grosvenor before was 25 copper coins per pound for refined mineral salt and 10 copper coins per pound for rough mineral salt. Then I negotiated with the butler that the price was 30 copper coins per pound for refined mineral salt and 12 copper coins per pound for rough mineral salt, which increased the purchase price by 1/5. This time, the other party purchased 1 ton of refined mineral salt and 3 tons of rough mineral salt, and agreed to trade once every 3 months according to this contract." "Interesting." Waylin looked at Weskier's signature on the contract and smiled. According to the previous price, the other party needed to pay 110 gold coins, but according to this contract, he needed to pay 132 gold coins, which was 22 more gold coins. However, the other party had an additional condition, that is, in Grosvenor and the surrounding territories, he could no longer trade mineral salt with other nobles. Chapter 57, Opening Up Trade Routes. Weird Things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Waylin didn't care at all about this request. His purpose this time was to take Raimundo through the planned trade route and visit the 6 nobles on the way. He did not want to waste extra time contacting the other minor nobles. This trading method saved him a lot of time. "Let's go and see if there are any treasures in this small town. Maybe we can find some." Waylin handed the contract documents to Raimondo and headed to the commercial district of the small town. Seeing that his master had no suggestions or ideas, Raimundo stopped saying anything, put away the contract documents, and quickly followed. The next morning, outside the caravan station, Duke wore a suit of linen clothes, led 2 of his knight attendants, led a war horse, and 3 pack horses, and waited quietly on the spot. The other members of the caravan did not drive away the 3 dukes. They had already learned what happened yesterday and understood that these were the new knights accepted by the Lord, and they might become their immediate bosses. 10 minutes later, after Waylin finished washing, he left the room and walked out of the door. When Duke saw the object of his allegiance appearing, he immediately went up to meet him, stroking his chest and bending down to salute. "Your Majesty, Duke reports to you. Well, he's recovering well. Looking at the energetic Duke, Varen nodded and said. Raimondo, I leave Duke to you, train him well. Yes, sir. Raimondo accepted the task with a calm expression, and then took Duke to the open space next to him, preparing to conduct basic training for him and his 2 knight attendants. Waylin looked at the gloomy weather and felt very relieved, quiet, cool, and gentle. He enjoyed the weather. In the next few days, based on the situation in the territory and the intelligence collected, Varen signed another deal with Baron Weskier of Grosvenor. The investigation over the past few days gave Varen a general idea of the plight of other minor nobles and pioneers in the border areas. The group of people were caught off guard due to the sudden attack by the Grey Mango Wasteland monster. The loss of property and the threat to their own safety made them eager to sell their serfs in order to leave the Cartero province. This group of people is quite large. With more than 30 people in the border area around Grosvenor alone, they came to Cartero province to develop, hoping for stability. Now that this situation has arisen, this group of weak pioneers have to stop their losses in time, sell serfs and other remaining supplies, turn them into money, and leave this place as soon as possible. Who knows when these departed monsters will come again? Even if the kingdom later mobilized a group of silver knights, it could not prevent these pioneers from leaving this dangerous place. Therefore, a large number of serfs flooded into the market, which directly cut the price of slaves in half. In the past, a mature male slave cost 15 gold coins, and a female serf cost 12 gold coins. Now it only costs half the price, and it also comes with a child. Even so, there are many sellers and few buyers, so supply exceeds demand. Trapped away from home and with no money, Waylin could only turn to Weskier and asked him to purchase 800 male serfs and 500 female serfs for a price of 9,000 gold coins. He also paid 200 gold coins for food and freight, and asked Weskier to send it to the Lake of Praying Stars. For such a good thing, Weskier is happy to oblige. As for the fear that Varen would be unable to pay, Weskier didn't care at all. He actually hoped that the other party would owe money and get a favor from the other party in vain. On January 20th, after 5 days in the small town of Grosvenor, the caravan set off, preparing to leave here and head to its next destination. Tom, this is your extra reward. At the gate of the city, Raimundo took out 2 silver coins from his pocket and threw them to Tom, who nodded and bowed. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Tom took the silver coin respectfully, carefully put it into his inner pocket, and kept thanking Raimundo. Afterwards, Raimundo ignored the tour guide who had been working as a guide for 5 days and loudly ordered the caravan, "Let's go." Waylin was lying on the roof of a carriage, chewing on a plant similar to sugar cane. It was sweet and chewy, which made him pay attention to it, and he was ready to implement it when he returned to the territory. In the next month, I passed through 3 destinations one after another, signed some business agreements with the local nobles, and everything else went smoothly. But at the 5th destination, something unexpected happened. Along the muddy road, there were scrawny serfs everywhere, and there were even many deserters mixed in among them. "Sir, I've got it clear." Raimundo looked solemn, came to Waylin's side, and reported the report respectfully. "Tell me why there is such chaos here." Waylin crossed his arms, stared at the refugees on the roadside, and asked. "My lord, the situation is this. The lord of this place is named Kent Brome, and he is at war with the army of his son Barry Brome. The cause is about Kent Brome's daughter Evelyn Brome." "What?" Waylin looked at Raimundo in confusion. After Raimundo got the news, he looked in disbelief. After all, this was too ruinous. 2 months ago, Kent Brome suddenly became obsessed with his daughter Evelyn for some unknown reason. In order to get his daughter, Kent first brought his mistress to the military camp and forced her to admit that Evelyn was the child of her affair. He has no blood relationship. When the Baron's mistress refused to submit, Kent immediately threw her into a military prostitute camp. After 3 weeks of torture, after his mistress became completely crazy, he forced her to admit that Evelyn was not related by blood to him. "What does this have to do with Kent's son?" Varen asked with a puzzled look on his face, touching his chin. "That's the problem." Raimundo then replied, "While Kent stayed in the military camp for 3 weeks, Barry Braun took control of the entire castle and several surrounding towns, and announced that his father had been murdered. The demon possessed him, and then the two sides started fighting. No, why did Kent stay in the military camp for 3 weeks? Why did his son Barry turn against his father when he already had the right to inherit the title? And where is Evelyn, the protagonist of this accident? Varen was very worried. I quickly caught the problem. My subordinates don't know yet, but the information they gathered is this. Raimundo touched the back of his head and said doubtfully. It seems that there is an ulterior conspiracy in it. Lord, shall we intervene? What are you intervening in? This kind of thing will be solved soon. Let's take a detour and go to the terminal, Gressley. Maybe we will know the reason when we come back. Follow your orders. Raimundo bowed and saluted, and then directed the caravan to change its route and head to Gressley, window_Tabula equals window_Tabula_Tabula.push, mode, thumbs, feed, 01, container, Tabula, below, article, thumbnail, 300x250, placement, below article thumbnail, 300x250, target_type, mix. Chapter 58, Opening up the Trade Route, The Last Stop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After half a month of detour, the caravan arrived safely at the last destination of this trip, located in the northeastern border area of Cadlo province, the military town of Gressley, a semi-military town on the northern border, and the only town in Cadlo province that has free trade with the northern iron-forged dwarf mountain kingdom of Thurrock province. Although the kingdom of Ilia and the iron-forged dwarf mountain kingdom are still in a state of mutual hostility, the business of the military town of Gressley has not been greatly affected. As soon as they stepped into the city, the aroma of wine filled the air, making the guards of the caravan who had been sleeping in the open air all the way intoxicated. Looking around, dwarves and humans in groups of 3 or 2 were arm in arm, wandering on the road with drunken faces. Correspondingly, there were surprisingly many patrolling guards on the city streets. With just a light sweep, Wei Lin found no less than 100 soldiers, wearing leather armor and holding standard iron swords. My lord, I have inquired clearly. The Gressley Chamber of Commerce is located in the east district of the military town. Raimondo squeezed out of the crowd and came to the open space where the caravan temporarily stopped to report to Wei Lin. Let's go, we have been out for 2 months. Yes. After passing through a crowded street, the caravan successfully arrived at the final destination of this trip, the Gressley Chamber of Commerce established by the Gressley garrison. The Gressley Chamber of Commerce. Looking at the guard standing guard at the gate of the Chamber of Commerce, Wei Lin was slightly surprised. Low-level bronze soldiers, worthy of being a Chamber of Commerce opened by the Gressley military town. After several normal procedures, Wei Lin met the president of the Gressley Chamber of Commerce, Kane, the deputy commander of the Gressley military town, in a reception room. He was a kind and hard-to-see middle-aged man. Wine, welcome. You're welcome, Commander Kane. Wei Lin smiled and bowed slightly to express his respect. Kane motioned Wei Lin to sit down, and asked directly, Wei Lin, why did you come here? Or is it just for business? Of course it's for business. Wei Lin did not hide anything and frankly stated his purpose. Hearing the other party's answer, Kane just smiled, and didn't believe that the other party's purpose was so simple, and then continued to talk about this topic. In that case, what do you want to trade? Food, weapons and wine. What about slaves? As far as I know, you should be short of people to open up your territory. Commander Kane, my territory is not short of people. That's right, your family has several nobles in the province of Cadlo, so it's impossible to lack population. It's me who said too much. Kane's eyes were a little disappointed, but he concealed it well, and Wei Lin couldn't see anything from it. After half an hour of conversation, he finally bought 50 tons of wheat at 4 copper coins per caddy, spending 400 gold coins, and bought 200 barrels of wine at 5 silver coins per barrel. As for the weapons he wanted to buy, Kane also said he could not help. The situation between the Kingdom of Elia and the iron-forged Dwarf Mountain Kingdom became increasingly tense. There were many nobles who wanted to gain military merits. The weapons that could be sold in the military town of Gressley were sold out a month ago. The remaining weapons have touched the red line of the military town's weapons inventory. Although they can be sold, a Silver Knight group was suddenly transferred to the Cadlo province, which made these border troops dare not act rashly. Since the purchase was fruitless, Wei Lin could only think of another way. Fortunately, the expansion of the territory has entered a period of stability, and the need for weapons is not too urgent. After paying the deposit and signing the business agreement, Wei Lin said goodbye to Kane. After leaving the Gressley Chamber of Commerce, Wei Lin took Raimondo to stroll around. "My lord, is it going well?" Raimondo followed behind Wei Lin and asked. "Everything is going well. This business trip has come to an end. After the goods are loaded, we will set off to return." Unconsciously, Wei Lin passed through 3 commercial streets and came to a dark alley. "Why am I here?" Looking at the dilapidated environment around him, Wei Lin asked Raimondo with a question mark on his head. "I am also confused." Raimondo held the scabbard in his left hand and the hilt in his right hand, looking around vigilantly. For some reason, the two came here in a daze. The breath of the devil. Suddenly, footsteps came from the alley, and a skinny old man in a grey robe appeared in front of the two. Raimondo saw this and drew out his iron sword to block Wei Lin. For this uninvited guest, Wei Lin's spirit collapsed instantly, but when he saw the mark on the other's chest representing the ascetic of the Dawn Church, his nervous mood was relieved. "Believers of the Dawn, why do you say that?" Wei Lin pushed away Raimondo who was blocking him, bowed slightly, and asked him. The grey-robed old man shook the scepter in his hand, and a temporary barrier was unfolded. The gorgeous and soft light instantly enveloped the two. Looking around, the alley was still the same alley, but the president of his guild had disappeared. Before Wei Lin could ask, the grey-robed old man lowered his head and spoke slowly. "Respected, please forgive my rudeness. I am tracking down the demon according to the will of my god. Please forgive me." Another muted voice. Wei Lin remembered that the last time was when he signed a contract with the legendary wizard Anastasia. Seeing that the other party did not look directly at him, he was a little confused, but now was obviously not the time to think about these things. "How can I help you?" "Sir, thank you for your help. May I ask if you have encountered any demons on the road, or heard of any rumors of demons appearing?" After hearing this, Wei Lin shook his head and said, "During the journey, my men and I did not encounter any demons, nor did we hear of any rumors of demons appearing. But..." After considering it for a while, Wei Lin continued, "Kent Brom, the lord of a relatively prosperous barony not far from the Gressley military town, may have the information you want due to his unusual behavior." After hearing this, the grey-robed old man immediately thanked him. "Thank you for your help, may the morning light shine on you." Then, the barrier disappeared, and the grey-robed old man disappeared with it. "My lord, what happened just now?" That ascetic from the Church of Dawn. Raimondo asked in confusion, looking at the empty alley. Wei Lin held the token of the Dawn Church that suddenly appeared in his right hand, and said to himself, "The Cadlo province may not be peaceful recently. Let's go back and rest first." He patted Raimondo's shoulder, signaled him to put away his weapon, and turned to walk towards the caravan station. At this moment, the figure of the grey-robed old man appeared outside the Gressley military town. He first prayed to the god of dawn, then took a deep look at the town, and moved towards the destination. At the same time, a well-equipped army of about 3,000 people set out from the provincial capital, and the destination was the Kent territory that was in civil strife. Warm tips: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 59 Demonic Storm, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 days later, after completing the deal with the Gressley Chamber of Commerce, Varen couldn't wait to lead the Chamber of Commerce back home. In order to avoid unexpected situations, Varen deliberately avoided the Kent territory. Although this move will increase the time cost, it is safer. Sitting in the carriage, Varen carefully looked at the simple transaction form made by Raimondo and fell into deep thought. This transaction, excluding the cost of purchasing slaves, was a complete loss. According to the data of normal trading of goods, There are too few items that can be traded in the Lake of Praying Stars. After hearing this, Raimundo on the horse nodded and said, "My lord, foldable chairs like those will be copied by them soon, and they will not be able to trade goods next time. As for hegemony, the price is low and cannot be traded as a commodity." "You're right." Wei Lin put down the simple transaction form in his hand, remained silent for a while, and then said, "Relying on mineral salt alone, even if you make flowers, cannot support subsequent development. Let's think about how to solve it when we get back." At this stage, the only commodities that can be traded in Lake of Stars are mineral salts. If you want to continue to expand the types of commodities, in addition to exploring deeper into the Grey Mango Wasteland, you can only start with processing technology. Wei Lin stroked the somewhat rough ceramics and decided to try this first to see if he could make exquisite pottery. This is just one direction, and other possible development avenues must be considered. While Wei Lin was deep in thought, a caravan guard who was scouting ahead returned to the caravan and quickly reported, my lord, the front is blocked by the army and is temporarily impassable." "Which army is it from?" After hearing this, Wei Lin raised his head to look at the caravan guard and asked him. "My lord, the enemy's military flags include the royal flag and the noble flag. Specifically, which army they belong to, my subordinates have little knowledge and cannot know." The caravan guard reported truthfully. Upon seeing this, Raimundo said, "My lord, the one who raised the royal flag should be the army directly under the Cartero province, or the Silver Knights transferred from the kingdom. As for the noble flag, it should be temporarily recruited from the surrounding area." Noble army. After hearing this, Wei Lin nodded. According to his guess, there should be something unexpected happened in Kent territory, which caused the army to conduct a blockade and investigation here. However, due to the lack of information at this stage, he is not easy to make rash decisions and can only take one step at a time. Subsequently, Raimundo, under Varen's instructions, led the caravan slowly towards the blockade. Falling Rock Hills, as the outermost node of the blockade, is stationed here by a coalition of knights and hundreds of local nobles. "Captain, another caravan is coming ahead, is it?" A knight opened the curtain and lowered his head to report to a young female knight with short black hair. "Didn't I say that? No matter what it is, even if it is a dog, I must give it a good check." Flora Akers wiped her weapon and said impatiently, as a high-level silver knight, she could have wiped out those damn devil remnants in Kent, but she didn't expect to be thrown into this hellish place. "Team, Captain, that caravan carries the flag of your family, do you need to inspect it too?" The knight glanced at his captain and bravely continued to report. "It's not you." Flora heard that it was related to her family and stopped mid-sentence. Then she stood up, put the sword back into the scabbard, and ordered to her subordinates, "Lead the way, I will personally lead the way. Go check it out." "Yes." The knight replied, then turned around and led the way. Flora straightened her short hair, put on her black helmet, pulled down her visor, and followed her subordinates out of the tent. Outside the checkpoint, the guard standing guard looked at the civilian in linen clothes in front of him as he looked at the camp unscrupulously. Thinking of the busy appearance of the knight just now, he shut his mouth very conscientiously and did not dare to scold him like before. Varen looked at the temporary camp in front of him. The noble army and the kingdom's army were clearly visible. The camps near the left area are neatly laid out. Except for the patrolling personnel, the rest are undergoing necessary training. They are obviously the kingdom's troops. In contrast, the right side was much more chaotic, but there was no drinking or gambling. Every soldier wore leather armor and had sophisticated weapons. According to his perception, at least two-thirds of the soldiers entered the professional stage. Although most of them were warrior apprentices or knight attendants, it also proved that these nobles used their own wealth and did not use serfs to make up for their wealth. "Lord, here we come." Wei Lin heard Raimundo's voice and turned to look at Flora walking towards him. Flora glanced at Varen, said nothing, and just asked her men to start checking the caravan. Regarding the army's inspection, the caravan guards retreated to the roadside in cooperation with Raimundo's order. "Captain, everything is normal." A few minutes later, after confirming that there was no demon or its minions, the knight quickly came to Flora, reported to her, and then retreated behind her. Upon hearing this, Flora turned her head slightly and stared at Varen. "Are you from the Acres family?" Faced with the inquiry from the knight wearing the visor, Varen was a little confused, but he still answered truthfully, "I am Varen Acres, the 6th-generation patriarch of the Acres family and the 5th son of Eagle Earl Angus. My name is Flora Acres. I'm glad to meet you, my tribe." Flora took off her visor and said in a gentle tone, "I belong to the lineage of Count Andersi, and I belong to the 6th generation according to my generation. If you mind, you can call me Ant." Several knights on the side were stunned to see their captain showing his ladylike side, almost blinding themselves. Those bastards don't train seriously and are lazy again. "Captain, let me go over and take a look." "Vice Captain, I'll go with you. We have to fix these bastards today." "There seems to be something going on over there, Captain, I'll take someone to take a look." In less than a minute, all the knights standing next to Flora left. Apart from the guard standing guard, only Varen and the caravan members were left. Looking at Flora, who was only a few years older than him, Waylin made a decision in his heart and whispered, "Auntie. So good." After satisfying her desire to be an elder, Flora was in a good mood and immediately took Waylin's hand and walked towards her tent. Raimundo watched his master leave and could only wait where he was. Along the way, many knights looked at the captain leading a young man dressed as a civilian towards his tent with excitement on his face, and they all lowered their heads, wondering what they were thinking.